Failure is a stepping stone. Let me start this lesson by saying something that may change how you've been conditioned to think about failure. Failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is actually a part of success. The problem is not that people fail. The problem is that people interpret failure incorrectly. They treat failure like a verdict, like a final answer, like proof that they are incapable of doing this business. So this next lesson exists to remove that belief system from you. Because if you're going to build anything meaningful, and that's a business, wealth, a relationship, legacy, failure is going to be a part of the journey. Trust me. The question is not whether you'll fail. The question is whether you'll learn. Failure taught me what no book could teach me. Now, to be clear, I've read a couple books about this. I've even watched some videos, and I've even taken a course. But none of them taught me what failure taught me. You see, failure, it forced me to slow down. Failure forced me to evaluate and reevaluate and to take responsibility. Books give you theory. Failure gives you feedback. And feedback that's what sharpens your skills. So those early evictions taught me a lesson that I could have never learned in a classroom. They showed me what matters. They exposed what I ignored. They revealed where I was sloppy. And that awareness changed everything. The failure to success pipeline. Let me give you a simple framework. Every failure moves through the same pipeline, whether you notice it or not. Failure happens. Then you're going to either do one or two things. You're going to extract the lesson or you're going to repeat the mistake. The choice is yours. Here's a pipeline that I learned to follow. You see, when you have failure is what teaches you the lesson. And then after you learn the lesson, then you adjust. After you adjust, you take action. And after you take action, you should see better results. That's the pipeline. But most people get stuck at failure. And then they get in their heads and they start blaming other people, or they start blaming the guests, making excuses. They start blaming the leasing office. Oh, they hating on me, right? And then eventually they quit. Now, winners, they move through an entire different type of pipeline because of their mindset. They don't rush it. They don't skip steps. They take the lesson and then they make the adjustments. Here's what each eviction taught me. So the first eviction taught me restraint. I learned not to overspend before the business proved itself. I learned that cash flow is oxygen, and I learned that lean operations survive longer. The second eviction taught me boundaries. I learned that not all money is good money. I learned that standards attract stability, and I learned that prevention is always cheaper than repair. Now, the third eviction taught me clarity. I learned that communication isn't optional, it's a necessity. I learned that expectations must be explicit, and I learned that assumptions destroy business. Each failure that I had refined me. So sometimes you have to pull back to be set free. Sometimes a setback is a set up. None of these failures disqualified me. Winners versus losers after failure. Let's talk about the difference between those two. It's not intelligence, it's not opportunity, it's not resources. It's your response. Losers experience failure and say, this always happens to me. Life isn't fair. I'm done with this business. But winners, they experience failure and they say, what could I have controlled? What changes do I need to make? And what did this teach me? Same event, different interpretation, different outcomes. The hidden gifts of failure. Failure gives you things that success cannot. It gives you credibility because you've been tested and now you're battle ready. It gives you wisdom because you know what to do and what not to do. It gives you resilience because you survived. It gives you perspective because now you've seen both sides of the coin. It gives you stories. Now you can teach others. You see, success without failure creates ego, and failure without learning creates bitterness. But failure with reflection creates mastery. The stepping stone visualization. I want you to imagine something. You're crossing a river. There's no bridge. The only way that you can get across is stepping on stones. Now each stone is uncomfortable. Some are slippery, some are unstable, so they're shaky. These stones represent failure. But you have three choices. You can turn back, you can stand still, or you can step forward. Standing still feels safe, but it gets you absolutely nowhere. Turning back feels familiar, but it keeps you stuck. Progress requires you to step on these stones. Now, stepping stones don't disappear, they actually support you. Let's talk about your failure resume. Let's end with an exercise. I want you to create something called a failure resume. Take a moment and get a pen and paper. Now write this down. What are my biggest failures? What did each one of these failures teach me? What can you change because of it? You start to notice something very powerful, that every failure pushed you forward, even when it didn't feel like it, even when it felt like you were losing. You're still winning because there's no losses, only lessons. So the next time you fail, don't panic. Pause, extract the lesson, make the adjustment, and take the necessary actions. You see, failure isn't pushing you backwards, it's positioning you for your next level. Now, week 2 is complete. Now, in week 3, we're going to shift from survival to breakthrough. We're going to be talking rental arbitrage, partnerships, and how I turn struggle into momentum.